My first guest is the man who made electric cars a thing and is currently working on perfecting reusable rockets, space travel, connecting the human brain directly to computers, connecting cities with electromagnetic bullet trains.
The success of the automotive industry in North America has been built on the foundation of free trade for many decades. However, trade tensions are currently on the rise, and Canada is starting to look elsewhere, specifically towards Europe. This raises the question, why now? Can you tell me what this means for the future of automobiles? The question that is most important is, how will this impact you? It is imperative that you comprehend the fact that if this power shift continues, the cost of automobiles may skyrocket, factories may close their doors, and automobile manufacturers such as Tesla, General Motors, and Ford may be confronted with a crisis that they did not anticipate. By the time you reach the conclusion of this video, you will have a better understanding of why this could be the most significant automotive shakeup in the history of the industry, why this is a crisis in the making, and why this is important to you. Can you imagine waking up to discover that the car of your dreams suddenly costs an additional $10,000? Does that sound crazy? It's possible that this will occur sooner than you think. At this moment, the automotive industry is on the cusp of an economic shift that has the potential to completely transform the manner in which automobiles are manufactured, sold, and priced across the entirety of North America. When it comes to economic cooperation, the United States of America and Canada have historically been closely intertwined, particularly in the field of automobile manufacturing. Companies that manufacture automobiles on both sides of the border have relied on one another for the supply of materials, labor, and production efficiencies. Automobiles are rarely manufactured in a single nation entirely. Before a vehicle even makes it to the showroom floor, it must first travel through both countries multiple times in order to acquire the necessary components. So far, this relationship has been functioning without any problems. Shockwaves are being sent through the industry as a result of a sudden and dramatic shift in trade policies, and the consequences could be severe that result from this. Heavy tariffs have been imposed by the United States on goods imported from Canada, which poses a threat to the cost structures that automobile manufacturers have relied on for many years. On the other hand, Canada is not going to back down. The response that came from Ottawa is incisive, calculated, and has the potential to reshape the automobile market in ways that very few people anticipated. Supply chains that were once as smooth as well-oiled machines are now in jeopardy, and the potential fallout could be catastrophic for both consumers and automobile manufacturers alike. The market for automobiles in North America is on the verge of complete anarchy, and the customer will be the one to bear the consequences of this situation. Nevertheless, there is one business that is suffering a significant loss in the midst of all this mayhem, and that is Canada's Counterpunch Corporation. Tesla is dealt a blow that is direct. Imagine for a moment that Tesla was getting ready to become a luxury brand overnight. In fact, that is exactly what might take place. In an unexpected move, Canada is contemplating imposing a tariff of 100% on Tesla automobiles as a reaction to the trade policies that the United States has implemented. This would be a devastating blow to the Canadian economy, effectively doubling the price of popular models such as the Tesla Model 3 and Model Y. A vehicle that was previously sold for $50,000 could suddenly jump to $100,000, which would force a significant number of consumers to completely withdraw from the market. On the other hand, the real impact extends far beyond just Tesla purchasers in Canada. Not only is Tesla a brand of automobiles in Canada, but it is also completely integrated into the supply chain of the country. This company is dependent on materials sourced from Canada, such as nickel, lithium, and aluminium, which are all essential components for the manufacturing of batteries. In the event that Canada takes retaliatory action by restricting access to these vital resources, Tesla will be compelled to seek alternatives, which will result in increased expenses, production delays, and possibly even an increase in the cost of electric vehicles in the United States. Those on Wall Street are keeping a close eye. The price of Tesla's stock is notoriously sensitive to trade disputes, and even the rumor of restrictions imposed by Canada could send investors into a frenzy. Not only does this present a regulatory headache for Tesla, but it also poses a direct threat to the company's long-term growth. Although Tesla is the company that is being hit the hardest by this counterpunch, it is by no means the only automaker that is feeling the pressure. At this moment, the entire industry in North America is standing on ground that is unstable. But let's go into more detail about it, shall we? Why is every single automaker in such hard times? As a result of the supply chain nightmare, the majority of people are unaware of the extent to which their automobile is manufactured in Canada until the supply is interrupted. A just-in-time manufacturing system is the foundation upon which the modern automobile industry is built. This system is a method that is intended to minimize waste and maximize efficiency by producing only what is required at the precise moment that it is required. Theoretically, this system reduces expenses and ensures that production continues without interruption. In point of fact, however, it leaves automobile manufacturers extremely susceptible to disruptions, particularly in the event that essential components suddenly become unavailable. Components manufactured in Canada are indispensable for automobile manufacturers such as Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis. Every day, a wide variety of goods is transported across the border, including wiring harnesses, steel frames, lithium-ion batteries, and aluminum panels, among other things. An entire production line can be brought to a halt by a single missing component, which can result in expensive shutdowns, delays, and reductions in workforce utilization. Automobile manufacturers, in contrast to other industries, are unable to simply replace these parts overnight. Specialized plants, the majority of which are situated in Canada, are the establishments that possess the machinery, expertise, and raw materials that are necessary for production. Without them, the production of automobiles in the United States will come to a complete and utter halt. In addition to being a problem with logistics, this is also a crisis in terms of finances. As a result of the possibility that assembly lines that were designed to function like clockwork will now slow down indefinitely, automobile manufacturers are being forced to scramble to find alternative suppliers. A great number of businesses are already dealing with shortages, and if these bottlenecks in the supply chain continue to worsen, automobile manufacturers will be forced to make difficult choices, such as lowering their output, increasing their prices, or passing the costs on to their customers. As the price of automobiles continues to rise, production comes to a halt, and employment opportunities are in jeopardy. The ripple effect will be felt across dealerships, factories, and households. Why exactly is the United States of America losing control? Over the course of many years, the United States of America asserted its authority over trade terms, utilizing its economic might to shape policies that were favorable to domestic manufacturers. This time, however, Canada is the one making the decisions. This time around, Canada is in a position of power, in contrast to previous conflicts in which it served primarily as a defensive actor. Ottawa is in a position of power because it has access to essential materials, a growing list of global trade partners, and a stronghold in the supply chain that runs through North America. The wealth of resources that Canada possesses is one of the primary reasons why it has the upper hand. Nickel, lithium, and aluminium are three materials that are essential to the production of modern vehicles, and this country is one of the leading producers of these materials in the world. Automobile manufacturers in the United States will have a difficult time meeting demand if they do not have them, particularly as the transition towards electric vehicles continues to accelerate. The economic ties that Canada has with Europe are also being strengthened, which is creating a viable alternative to trade based in the United States. During the time that the United States is imposing tariffs, European automakers are negotiating deals, which could put American brands at a significant disadvantage. It is becoming increasingly difficult to resolve the political impasse, and neither side wants to be the first to give up. Washington is placing its bets on the fact that its pressure campaign will result in Canada changing its position. But there is no indication that Ottawa is going to retreat. On the contrary, Canada's actions give the impression that the country is ready to completely shift its economic focus away from the United States. In the event that the trade conflict becomes more intense, the repercussions for American automobile manufacturers could be catastrophic in the event that this occurs. Uncharted territory is an area that the automotive industry is moving towards. The disruptions in the supply chain, the rising costs, and the instability of the economy all point to a future in which automobiles will be more expensive, production will be more complicated, and trade relations will be more fragile than they have ever been before. This is not merely a disagreement over trade. It is a struggle for economic preeminence, and the outcome of this conflict will have a significant impact on the future of the automobile industry in North America for many years to come. Automobile prices in the United States might go up, but this is just the beginning. This has a domino effect on purchasers. New automobiles are already quite pricey. What happens if the price suddenly goes up by say $5,000 or $10,000? This is not merely a question of philosophical interest. There is a very good chance that it will occur, and it might happen sooner than anyone anticipates. As soon as tariffs are implemented, the prices that automobile manufacturers must pay skyrocket. Every single thing from the raw materials to the essential components suddenly becomes more expensive, and when costs go up, automobile manufacturers do not absorb them. The buyer receives them without any intermediaries. At dealerships, this could result in an increase in sticker prices that has never been seen before. The majority of people are unaware of the number of components that are sourced from Canada for their automobiles. Before an automobile is put together, the steel that is used in the frame, the aluminum that is used in the body, and even the lithium that is used in the batteries of electric vehicles all make their way across the border. In the event that tariffs are suddenly imposed on those materials, manufacturers will be required to pay twice or even 3 times the amount that they would normally pay. The increase is incorporated into the final price of the vehicle, which is already quite high due to the fact that production is already quite expensive. There is no difference in the level of pressure among dealerships. Because the pricing structures of automobile manufacturers are determined by the costs of the supply chain, dealerships have no choice but to follow suit. In addition to engaging in the business of selling automobiles, they are also operating within a system that already has slim margins of profit. When there is an increase in the cost of purchasing vehicles, the price of the vehicles on the lot also goes up. There is no relief to be found in used automobiles. As prices for new cars continue to rise, an increasing number of individuals will look to pre-owned options, which will drive demand through the roof. Price increases occur when demand is greater than supply. Because of this, there is a domino effect that causes affordability to disappear, and customers end up paying more regardless of the path they choose to obtain their goods. In the case of the typical purchaser, the repercussions are obvious. It is expected that the monthly payments for automobiles will increase, the cost of auto loans will become more expensive, and leasing options will become less appealing. Millions of people might find themselves unable to realize their dream of owning a brand new automobile. On top of that, just when it appears that things could not possibly get any worse, the crisis does not end with automobiles. However, this is just the beginning of a much more significant issue. Automobile manufacturing is in a downward spiral, with job losses and factory closures. Where do factories turn when they are unable to obtain the components they require? The workers are the ones who suffer as a result of their closure. Efficiency forms the foundation of the automobile industry in North America. Automakers use a manufacturing system known as just-in-time, which means that parts are only delivered when they are required, thereby preventing excess inventory. There is a system that functions perfectly until there is a problem with it. As soon as tariffs throw a wrench into the supply chain, factories begin to slow down, production lines come to a halt, and thousands of workers are sent home without receiving their paychecks. For example, Detroit, Michigan, and Toledo, Ohio, are just 2 of the cities that could experience a significant loss of employment opportunities. These are the locations where the production of automobiles is more than just an industry. In many cases, it serves as the basis for entire communities. It is not just the people who work in automobile assembly plants who suffer when the plant is down. This has a ripple effect that can be felt throughout the entire supply chain, including suppliers, transportation companies, and even local businesses that are dependent on factory workers to keep their doors open. Beyond the possibility of layoffs, businesses may be forced to make difficult decisions. To avoid incurring high costs, certain manufacturers might consider moving their production to other countries. Others might completely stop hiring, which would result in wage freezes for those who were fortunate enough to keep their jobs. There would not be a single industry that would be spared from the economic devastation. There would be a widespread impact across industries, affecting a large number of workers who have no direct connection to the automobile manufacturing industry. There is more to this than just the numbers that appear on a company's balance sheet. The story is about real people, real families, and real lives that are turned upside down. What is the most terrible aspect? This is not a crisis just for the short term. Putting factories back into operation after they have been shut down and workers have been laid off is not as easy as turning on a switch. Recuperation takes years, and the damage continues to be present. The effects of this crisis reach even higher, directly to the stock market, where billions of dollars are hanging in the balance. This is happening at the same time that workers are struggling to find stability. A stock market crash could be precipitated by the meltdown that occurred on Wall Street. To say that Tesla stock is unpredictable would be an understatement. When Canada poses a threat to its supply chain, what consequences occur? When faced with uncertainty, stock markets do not react very well. In addition, this trade war is one of the most significant economic uncertainties that have occurred in recent times. When they see industries that are in danger, investors go into a panic, and automakers are currently experiencing a financial storm. As soon as production slows down, profits begin to decrease. When profits go down, stock prices tend to go down as well. There are billions of dollars at stake for General Motors, Ford, and Tesla, and investors are aware of this fact. Even the tiniest indication of a disruption has the potential to send their stock values tumbling. The companies in question will not only have to contend with increased costs, but they will also have to contend with a loss of investor confidence if the tariff war with Canada escalates the situation. Moreover, confidence is the most important factor in the stock market. The problem is not limited to automobile manufacturers. A significant amount of interdependence exists between the automotive industry and the larger financial system. Banking institutions that offer auto loans, hedge funds that invest in manufacturing, and even retirement accounts that hold stock in major automakers are all susceptible to the risk of financial instability. If the stocks of automobile manufacturers were to fall, it would likely bring the financial markets down with them, which would set off a domino effect of economic instability. There is a significant amount of risk involved for the typical investor. There is a possibility that a single negative earnings report from a major automobile manufacturer is sufficient to send shockwaves through the market. It is possible that certain portfolios will experience a precipitous decline if multiple companies announce losses. In addition, once Wall Street begins to fall apart, it is impossible to predict where the financial crisis will end. However, while investors are bracing themselves for the impact, regular consumers are about to experience the fallout in a different way, on account of the fact that rising costs are not limited to automobiles. The price increases are about to be implemented across the board, from home appliances to smartphones, which will make people's lives even more expensive than they already are. After automobiles only, this has an impact on everything that you purchase. Think that this is only about automobiles. Don't be so sure. This has the potential to drive up the cost of virtually everything. Steel made in Canada. The repercussions are not limited to the automotive industry alone. The construction of everything from washing machines to aeroplanes requires them as an essential component. Every sector of the economy that is dependent on these materials will go through a period of increased expenses if they become more expensive, and this will result in an increase in prices across the board. Consider the example of electronic devices. Metals sourced from Canada are frequently used in the production of electronic devices such as smartphones, laptops, and home appliances at the manufacturing stage. Increasing the difficulty of obtaining those materials due to tariffs will result in an increase in production costs, and manufacturers will not hesitate to pass those costs on to customers. Another significant industry that will be affected by this is the construction industry. The cost of constructing homes, office buildings, and infrastructure is directly impacted by the price of steel when it comes to construction. In the event that tariffs result in an increase in the cost of steel, the cost of construction will also increase, which will result in an increase in the cost of housing and rent. There is a possibility that the repercussions of this trade war will extend far beyond what anyone may have initially anticipated. An increase in the cost of food is also a possibility. The transportation sector is dependent on automobiles that are constructed using materials sourced from Canada. Additionally, if the costs of production go up, the costs of shipping goods will go up as well. The result may result in price increases for a variety of products, including groceries, household essentials, and everyday items. It is the same as what I mentioned earlier. This is not a problem that applies solely to the automotive sector. This is a problem for anyone who makes a purchase of any kind. It is not the question at hand whether or not this trade war will have repercussions at this point. It is the extent to which those repercussions will have a far-reaching impact. So, let's take it even further and break it down. The increased presence of European automobile manufacturers. It is now Canada's closest friend. American automakers have held a dominant position in the Canadian market for several decades. On the other hand, that might be coming to an abrupt end. An unexpected victor is manifesting itself as a result of trade tensions that are driving Canada further away from the United States. European car manufacturers. Several automobile manufacturers, including Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz, are making the most of this opportunity, transforming Canada into a crucial battleground in the global automotive race. Because of an existing trade agreement with Canada, European brands are able to avoid avoid the tariffs that could be detrimental to companies such as General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis. This is in contrast to the situation between American automakers and European brands. This means that electric vehicles from Europe could potentially flood the Canadian market, offering competitive pricing and cutting-edge technology without the financial strain of heavy import duties. When it comes to customers, the choice is readily apparent. When a German or Swedish alternative is not only less expensive, but also frequently comes with cutting-edge design and engineering, why would you pay thousands of dollars more for a car that was manufactured in the United States? This change has implications beyond just the pricing. European manufacturers are making significant efforts to increase their production in order to strengthen their presence in Canada. These efforts include establishing partnerships with Canadian battery suppliers and investing in research and development within the country. European automobile manufacturers, in contrast to their counterparts who are frantically trying to deal with disruptions in supply chains, have planned for contingencies, which ensures that they will continue to be competitive in a global market that is constantly shifting. As a direct consequence of this, dealerships all over Canada are already observing shifts in the interest of customers. Despite the fact that American brands used to be the most popular, showroom floors are beginning to look more like European auto expos. Considering that Canada is enthusiastic about this change, the question that needs to be answered is not whether American automakers will lose ground. Rather, it is how much of the market they are willing to give up before taking action to counteract this growing threat, which is Tesla's worst nightmare, which is losing Canada's resources. The automotive industry has been revolutionized by Tesla, but the company's success is contingent on a supply chain that is fragile. Canada possesses vast reserves of lithium, nickel, and aluminium, which are materials that are essential for the production of electric vehicle batteries. This is one of the country's most important resources. However, because Canada is reevaluating its trade priorities, it is possible that Tesla will soon find itself with no access to these essential resources. The Canadian market has been described as a game changer for Tesla's supply chain by Elon Musk himself. Raw materials from Canada are a significant source of energy for the company's manufacturing facilities. Therefore, any disruption could result in an increase in production costs. Tesla will be forced to look elsewhere if Canada decides to pivot towards European partnerships. This is a move that will not only take years to establish, but it will also significantly increase the costs of production when it is implemented. If Canada were to lose its resources, the damage that would be caused would be catastrophic. Despite the fact that Tesla operates on razor-thin profit margins in order to maintain competitive prices for electric vehicles, a sudden increase in the cost of batteries would completely alter the situation. Alternatively, Tesla will either have to absorb the loss, which is something that investors will not tolerate, or it will raise prices, which will turn off customers who are already having trouble affording the product. There is also the looming threat of supply shortages, which is in addition to the costs. Several other automobile manufacturers, including those from Germany and Japan, are eager to obtain access to the battery materials that are available in Canada. There is a possibility that Tesla will lose its competitive advantage to rivals who have already started negotiating long-term deals if it does not act quickly. The competition for the dominance of electric vehicles is heating up, and the stakes have never been higher for Tesla than they are right now. The decision that Tesla must make is a difficult one because Canada is in control of the future of battery production. Get used to the new trade landscape, or else you run the risk of losing your hold on the market. However, Tesla is not the only automaker that is experiencing insecurity. There is a significant possibility that the entire electric vehicle industry will run into a significant obstacle, a debate on political issues. Who is the first to blink? Both the United States of America and Canada do not wish to give the impression that they are weak. As the duration of this trade war continues to drag on, both parties will become more entrenched, which will make negotiations more challenging. Reversing course would result in Washington losing control over the direction of economic policy. In the event that Ottawa were to concede, it would be equivalent to accepting economic bullying, which could establish a potentially hazardous precedent for future trade disputes. The issue is that both countries have leverage in this situation. Because the United States continues to be Canada's most important trading partner, a prolonged standoff could be detrimental to both countries' economies. While this is going on, Canada is the source of the resources that the American automobile industry is in dire need of. Because neither side is willing to compromise, the situation is getting to the point where it is about to explode. The negotiations are taking place behind closed doors, but neither government wants to be seen as the one that is initiating the process. Knowing that any misstep could have long-lasting effects on their respective economies, political leaders are weighing the consequences of escalation versus compromise in order to determine which course of action is more responsible. In the meantime, consumers consumers and businesses are caught in the middle of the situation. Car manufacturers are delaying production decisions because they are uncertain about what the future will bring. As a result of the unpredictable price swings that dealerships are experiencing, regular consumers are left wondering whether or not the current moment is the appropriate time to purchase a vehicle, or whether they should wait until the chaos has subsided. Winning a trade war does not happen overnight. Battles like these are drawn out and protracted, putting both political strategy and economic resiliency to the test. Over time, however, one side will be required to blink. Who will be the first to do it, and how much will it cost them in the process? That is the only question that remains. Is Mexico the next country to declare its independence? Throughout the decades, Mexico has been the unseen powerhouse in the North American automobile manufacturing industry. Mexico has been playing an essential part in the supply chain without garnering much attention. On the other hand, that might be about to evolve. Because of the escalating tensions between the United States and Canada, Mexico has been keeping a close eye on the situation and analyzing whether or not this trade war presents an opportunity for Mexico to adjust its own strategy. Considering that Canada is willing to shift its focus towards Europe, what is preventing Mexico from contemplating a move along the same lines? Mexico has historically been in a precarious position, deeply integrated into the North American supply chain, while at the same time being acutely aware of its dependence on the policies emanating from Washington. This is in contrast to Canada, which has long relied on the United States as its most important trading partner. At this time, when the automotive industry is experiencing uncertainty, Mexico may come to the conclusion that it no longer wishes to be caught in the crossfire. As a result of the trade agreements that have been established between the three countries, the flow of components and materials across borders has been streamlined. On the other hand, Mexico has seen an increase in the diversification of its partnerships. Automakers from Europe and Asia have been increasing their investments, constructing factories, and securing deals that have the potential to reduce Mexico's reliance on the United States in the years to come. Mexico may see an opportunity to break away from its traditional role and begin favoring markets that offer more stability and fewer economic threats. If the tensions between Washington and Ottawa continue, this would enable Mexico to break away from its traditional role. This would have a significant impact. The United States of America is reliant on Mexico for the production of millions of automobiles and auto parts, the majority of which are assembled with raw materials sourced from Canada. It would be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to repair the damage that would be caused to the North American trade network if Mexico were to make the decision to shift its focus towards either Europe or Asia. What began as a disagreement between two countries has the potential to develop into a comprehensive reorganization of automobile manufacturing across the world. This decision, however, is not solely based on economic considerations. It also involves the use of strategy. In addition, this raises an even more significant question. This is the future of free trade. Are we about to get to the end? Whether or not it is too late to stop the momentum that has already begun will be the question that will be discussed. Do you have any thoughts? Leave a comment below and let us know. We appreciate you watching.